Students, so this is video 18. We will continue with next condition, that is nephrotic syndrome, and very important. Okay, so when we talk about the definition, nephrotic syndrome is a primary glomerular disease characterized by the following. So there are four main conditions that is seen under nephrotic syndrome. So what are those? There is marked increase in protein in the urine, which is called as proteinuria, then decreased in albumin in the blood, which is called as hypoalbuminemia, then edema, high serum cholesterol and low density lipoproteins leading to hyperlipidemia. So this is the definition of nephrotic syndrome. It is primary glomerular disease characterized by the following, that is marked increase in protein in the urine, proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, edema and high serum cholesterol or hyperlipidemia. So when we say nephrotic syndrome, it is characterized by these four conditions and it is primarily a glomerular disease. So next we will go on to see what are the etiology and risk factors that is associated with nephrotic syndrome. First one is glomerulonephritis, so inflammation of the kidney. Already we have studied this. Next is systemic diseases like diabetes mellitus or SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus. Then amyloidosis. So what is this amyloid? It is a protein which is found in liver, kidney, spleen, tissue in certain diseases. So when there is stagnation or accumulation or deposition of these proteins, then we call that as amyloidosis. Okay, so this also can be one of the cause which can lead to nephrotic syndrome. Hepatitis B, syphilis, which is a sexually transmitted disease, carcinoma, leukemia, so cancer, carcinoma is cancer and leukemia blood cancer, infectious disease or preeclampsia. So this preeclampsia, it mainly occurs in pregnancy, which is characterized by increased blood pressure, sometimes with fluid retention and proteinuria. So this preeclampsia is before the occurrence of the eclampsia, where the mother can end up having seizures because of hypertension. Okay, and other factors, what are those? Any kind of allergy reactions, then reactions to drug as a side effects like penicillin, anticonvulsant, captopril, gold salt, heroin and NSAIDs. What are NSAIDs? Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Then renal vein thrombosis, when there is a blood clot in the vein, sickle cell disease, it's anemia, heart failure. So sickle cell disease is nothing but the destruction of the cell. Okay, the shape of the cell becomes like a sickle, which again leads to anemia, heart failure. So these are the various etiological factors that leads to nephrotic syndrome. Next we will go to pathophysiology. So as we have seen, it is a glomerular disease. So because of any one of these etiological factor, there can be a damage to the glomerular capillary membrane, which can lead to loss of plasma protein. So from the plasma, there is a loss of protein. So then we will see what are the other condition. So now we know how it leads to hypoalbuminemia, right? So when protein, albumin is lost, automatically there is an hypoalbumin in the blood. Next, increased synthesis of lipoprotein. So this lipoprotein are actually synthesized by the muscle, heart, adipose tissue. Then it is secreted and it is attached to the endothelium, that is in the blood capillaries. So there is an increased synthesis of lipoprotein. It is synthesized by the muscle, heart, adipose tissue. Then it is secreted and attached to the endothelium. So when we say endothelium, those are the blood capillaries. Then that leads to increased level and low density lipoprotein. Okay, so this what happens is it increases the level of lipoprotein and it is low density lipoprotein that is formed. Then again we know that because there is an increase of the high density lipoprotein, automatically what happens is, whenever there is an increase in the lipid, it leads to a condition called as hyperlipidemia. So because of the damaged glomerular capillary membrane, there is loss of protein from the plasma. Then next we have seen it leads to hyperlipidemia. What exactly happens? There is an increased synthesis of lipoprotein. So that leads to increased level of the low density lipoprotein, leading to hyperlipidemia. Okay, so increased level and low density protein leading to hyperlipidemia. Next, on the other side, what does this hypoalbumin do? Low albumin in the blood. So this automatically increases the oncotic pressure. Okay, so when there is a oncotic pressure in the increase on oncotic pressure, so usually this oncotic pressure will try to pull water into the circulatory system. Okay, and it is oncotic means nothing but it is the pressure which is applied by the albumin, okay, which is the protein. Okay, so this pressure is applied by the albumin, whatever is being left, and it will try to pull the water into the circulatory system. Next, it leads to fluid shift from ICF to ECF, because there is a pulling of the water into the circulatory system. The water will move into extracellular from the intracellular. Fluid shift from ICF within the cell to outside of the cell, extracellular space. Next, it leads to activated renin-angiotensin system. So this activates the renin-angiotensin system. So now this renin is actually a hormone which regulates the blood pressure, fluid balance in the body. So when blood volume decreases, this renin increases. It is an hormone, okay, which makes sure that it regulates the blood pressure, fluid balance in the body. So when blood volume decreases, this renin increases and it converts angiotensinogen to angiotensin. Okay, so now we see that because there is a fluid shift from the ICF to ECF, automatically this renin angiotensin system gets activated, and that leads to accumulation of aldosterone. Okay, now when there is an increase of aldosterone, we will see what happens is it increases sodium and water reabsorption. Okay, so automatically again what happens, there is an increased ECF volume leading to edema. So we have seen how edema happens, hyperlipidemia, hypoalbuminemia occurs in the patient having proteinuria, okay, having the 4 conditions of nephrotic syndrome. So damaged due to any etiological factor. What happens? There is a glomerular capillary membrane damage. So when this damage happens, there is a plasma protein, like more of protein is lost through the urine, okay, leading to proteinuria. Then we see there are 2 conditions. Because of this, automatically there is an increase of lipoprotein, and then it increases the level of high density and low density lipoprotein, leading to hyperlipidemia. The other side, we see that there is hypoalbuminemia, which increases the oncotic pressure. This is the pressure exerted by the protein. So it tries to pull the water into the circulatory system. So there is a fluid shift which happens from ICF to ECF, and then this activates the renin angiotensin system. This increases the aldosterone. When aldosterone is increased, automatically it increases sodium and water reabsorption, leading to increased ECF, again leading to edema. So we have seen how all the 4 conditions happen in the nephrotic syndrome in the pathophysiology. Next we will go to clinical manifestation. So already as we have seen, patient will be having edema. So you can say that it is soft pitting edema around the eyes, periorbital edema. So you will see generalized edema in the patient and even around the eyes, okay, you will see. So the eyes will become very thin and the periorbital area you will see fluid collection. You can see in the diagram. Pitting edema means when you press, okay, when it leaves a pit, okay, or a pit like position that you can see in the diagram, okay, like a dimple, okay. So it is that we call that as pitting edema. And then we see that dependent area, sacrum and ankles and hands also there are edema. Ascites is nothing but accumulation of fluid in the peritoneal cavity will be there. Other symptoms like malaise, headache, irritability. Malaise is generalized body pain, headache, irritability, fatigue, abnormal or absence of menses, amenorrhea, okay, absence of menstruation. And then I think there is a spelling mistake, okay, so please correct that. Amenorrhea will be there in the patient, okay. Next, so in the diagram you will see that there is puffiness around the eyes, pitting edema over the legs, pleural effusion will be there in the lungs because there is accumulation of the fluid, and pulmonary edema, ascites, hypertension, anemia, dyspnea, ESR rate also will be increased, that is about 100 mm per hour, anorexia, fatigue, abdominal pain and diarrhea will be there in the patient. Okay, next we will go on to diagnostic findings. So we will see what are the various diagnostic findings. So we get to see that the patient is, we have to collect the history collection, physical examination, then urine analysis we have to see, automatically proteinuria we have to see. Okay, then predominantly, which means dominion strongest albumin will be found exceeding 3 to 3.5 per day, insufficient for the diagnosis of nephrotic syndrome. So if you find dominating cells in the urine and if the amount is above from 3 to 3.5, then we can very well know that it is a sign, very important sign of nephrotic syndrome. So serum albumin, when you check, you will find only 1 to 3.5 gram per dl, but actually the normal level of the albumin in the blood should be 3.4 to 5.4 gram per dl. So there is a less when you do a blood test and more in the urine, means it is a confirm, like it is like one of the major tests for the nephrotic syndrome. We can confirm that the patient can be having nephrotic syndrome. Then immunoelectrophoresis, to categorize the protein electrophoresis type of proteinuria. So what do we mean by immunoelectrophoresis? This is a test which is done. So it refers to precipitation in agar. They will use this agar and they will try to precipitate under a electrical field. Okay, so they will take and they will try to do it under electric field. So it is a process of combination of immunodiffusion and electrophoresis. So they will try to observe when it is getting precipitated. They will observe where there is a process of combination of immunodiffusion and electrophoresis. Now when we say protein electrophoresis, what is it? Is a test that measures specific proteins in the blood. So this is a test, again they will take agar and they will try to find out what kind of protein it is there, and then in the blood based on their electrical charge. So they will try to detect, and usually through this protein electrophoresis we will be able to detect abnormal M proteins. Okay, so when you find an abnormal protein, that is called as M protein. So in this protein electrophoresis we will be able to detect abnormal M, okay, M proteins. M stands for mango, M, okay, M proteins. Next is urine analysis. We know the WBC will be increased and granular and epithelial cells are cast, will be there. And then other cells. The needle biopsy of the kidney can be done to study the cell of renal tissue to confirm the diagnosis, to see if there is any neoplasm or glomerular nephritis. Okay, so that can be studied. Serum markers, anti-CL, it is not CL, it is C1Q antibodies. So these are normal proteins of the immune system. It can be found floating in the circulatory most healthy person. So usually you will see the C1Q, it is a normal protein. So it will be circulating in the normal healthy person. But here we are detecting anti-C1q antibodies, which are most reliable markers for assessing disease activity of lupus nephritis. So inflammation of the kidney that is led because of, or that is due because of systemic lupus erythematosus. In that condition we will see C1q antibodies. Okay, so these are the various diagnostic finding which has to be done for the patient to detect, the abnormality of the kidney, which if it is related with nephrotic syndrome. Next we will see with complications. So what are the complications due to different immunoresponse? So it can vary from person to person, okay, based upon their immune response. And then thromboembolism, especially of the renal vein. So we know what is embolism, right? So embolism is nothing but blood clot in the renal veins. So it can be because of thromboembolism, especially of the renal vein. Then pulmonary emboli, so lungs become blocked, okay, by a blood clot. So pulmonary, okay, artery and the vein, okay, which carries the blood to the heart, to the lungs, from the lungs to the heart. So if it is blocked by the blood clot, then we call that to be pulmonary emboli. And then acute renal failure. So this acute renal failure is sudden way where the kidney is not functioning. All of a sudden it is not cleaning the metabolic waste. Okay, so that is acute renal failure, damage to the kidney where the kidney is not able to function all of a sudden. That is called as acute renal failure. Accelerated atherosclerosis due to hyperlipidemia. So what happens, because there is a hyperlipidemia, it blocks all the arteries, okay, and causes obstruction. Okay, arteries are plagued, or it is covered with this fat, okay, and it leads to obstruction of blood. So these are all the various complications. Next we will see the medical management. So what is the medical management? So when we see medical management objectives, to preserve renal function. So very, very important that we make sure that we preserve the functioning of the kidney. So for that we have to give diuretics for severe edema, so that all the water from the body will be removed, and the person edema also will reduce. But we should take care that it should not lead to hypovolemia. Okay, so example, we can give furosemide or Lasix can be given. Next, use of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibition in combination with duration often reduces proteinuria, and taken 4 to 6 weeks to be effective. ACE inhibitor should be given. So this, what does it do? It reduces the proteinuria. So we have seen already like how when there is a so when there is a fluid shift, automatically this renin angiotensin also increases, leading to the increase of aldosterone, which again leads to reabsorption of sodium and water, leading to increased ICF and edema. So when we give this ACR inhibitor, it will stop the conversion of the angiotensin, and then it should be a drug. Okay, we have to give it in combination, so that with duration it reduces proteinuria, and it should be taken for 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, then anti-neoplastic agents, these are actually given for the cancerous patient. But why are we giving here? So drug of choice here you can see cyclophosphamide, cytozan, immunosuppressant medication like azathioprine, imuran. Now why do we give is, it is said that nephrotic syndrome can be caused because of the hyperactivated immune system. Okay, so with these drugs, automatically it lowers the natural immune system. So the immune system is thought to be involved in causing nephrotic syndrome. So if there is an hyperactivation of the immune system through which nephrotic syndrome has been led to the patient, then this automatically reduces the immune system, so that it can prevent the patient from nephrotic syndrome. So you can also see like chlorambucil, CIL, L is missing. Okay, chlorambucil, leukerin, cycloprine. If relapse occurs, repeat corticosteroid therapy. If there is again a relapse, they will also start with corticosteroid therapy. Next we will see dietary management. When we see in dietary management, patient has to take low sodium, liberal potassium to enhance sodium potassium pump mechanism. So when they take potassium more, automatically it will combine with the sodium. Okay, so they have to take liberal amount of potassium. Protein intake should be 8 gram per kg weight per day. Biologic protein, daily products, example meat. So you can tell them dairy products can be taken or meat. Okay, automatically we have to increase the protein level in the body because there is lots of protein loss that happens in the body. So already we have seen plasma protein, when it is lost only it increases the lipoprotein, okay, and hypoalbuminemia that is present cause to edema. So we have to prevent this. Okay, then low saturated fats can be given to the patient. Coming on to nursing management. So here maintain proper nutrition, maintain fluid balance, reduce fatigue, maintain skin integrity, maintain risk of infection. So accordingly you have to provide the nursing action. So proper nutrition as per it is required, the calories, the protein, the sodium restriction, it has to be discussed with the dietitian and it has to be given. So fluid volume, we know we have to assess the fluid status of the patient, maintain intake and output chart, and then we have to daily measure the edematous parts. It can also lead to pressure sores, we have to be careful. Then fluid, whatever is restricted, it should be given. Thirst may be relieved by giving. So sometimes if they are very thirsty, you can give them lemon slice or you can give them candy, ice chips. So what happens if you keep the mouth moist, so they will not feel thirsty. If you give water, then again it will become, fluid overload to the patient. So we should not. Then reduce fatigue. How? You have to assess the general condition of the patient, how much of work he or she is able to do. Then we have to provide rest. Okay, both physical and emotional. Exercise can increase catabolic activity. Okay, and then bed rest interspersed with periods of limited activity. Give them little activity so that they are not fully tired. Physical rest, emotional rest is included. They also need exercises. Encourage the client to talk about any fear diversional activities may be provided for the client. Now skin integrity, as I told you, because edema patient is prone to develop pressure sores, so to be very careful. Intervention includes good hygiene should be given, massage, position changes, as well as prophylactic measures such as mattresses, devices. Give them adequate pillow, frequent changing. Don't give very harsh massage. You have to give it very soft. Okay, then research based tools. We have to make sure that evidence based nursing has to be followed. So positioning and then massaging, and then making sure that you, while giving care, you assess if there is any outbreak of the skin. You follow that in order to prevent any kind of skin breakdown. Then minimize the risk of infection. So we have to minimize the risk of infection. So here we have to administer immunosuppressive medication and corticosteroids. If there is a relapse, already we have seen that. General supportive measures help boost the client's defense mechanism. Client teaching should involve appropriate ways to avoid infection, especially respiratory and urinary tract infection. So all this has to be taken care. So with this we have done, we have seen what is the definition, etiological factors, then pathophysiology, clinical manifestation, diagnostic finding, complication, medical management, dietary management, nursing management. So your nursing diagnosis you have to formulate based upon 4 conditions: hypoalbuminemia, proteinemia, edema, hyperlipidemia, then proper nutrition, okay, then fluid balance, reduce fatigue, skin integrity, minimum risk of infection. Based on this, you should be able to formulate your nursing diagnosis. Okay, so we have done with this condition. Next video we will see next condition.